It wasn't always easy and it took a little bit of magic, but Francisco Lindor came off the bench to lead the Mets past the Rockies on Friday night.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. It's the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. If you want to find any of my written work, you can do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, you see the extra big smile on my face. Part of that, of course, is the fact that the Mets won this wild game that we're going to talk about on Friday night. But also, I literally was just watching the end of Braves-Giants, and the Giants walked it off on a wild pitch. Our boy Wilmer Flores standing in the box. I thought he might have struck out on a check swing. They did not call it, and instead, wild pitch, and the runner comes in to score. The Braves are down bad right now, and that makes me a little bit happy. They're now 11.5 back in this division if these standings are updated. And the Phillies lost to the Pirates, and the Mets pulled one out against the Rockies. So Friday night was a pretty good night in the National League East for your New York Mets. Let's talk about this game because it was extremely frustrating. Then it was amazing. Then it was extremely frustrating. Then it became amazing. It was a roller coaster ride. The beginning of the game was the extremely frustrating part as the Mets lineup just got blanked by one of the worst pitchers in baseball. Didn't feel like Antonio Sensatella did too much. Part of it was hitting the ball hard at some people, but also it was just a lack of clutch. I mean, the Mets had opportunities inning over inning over inning and could not get the job done. First inning, Juan Soto gets a 2-out single, so not too much of a rally there, but one runner stranded. Second inning, Jeff McNeil and Francisco Alvarez each got singles. They were both stranded. Third inning, Starling Marte singled, Juan Soto walked, again both stranded. Fourth inning, Brett Baty walked, advanced the second on a wild pitch, was stranded there by Francisco Alvarez and Ronnie Mauricio. That bottom third of the lineup was not very good in this game. Mauricio did hit a late double that probably would have been a home run in a lot of other ballparks. Definitely put a charge in one, so that was good to see. Baty, the defense was great, and he had the walk there. But and Alvarez, I think, had 2 hits? But they just in a lot of big spots. That bottom three of Baty, Alvarez, Mauricio did not come through. So all of that to say, you get to the 6th inning, and this is the one that was really brutal. Antonio Sensatella walks Pete Alonso and Jeff McNeil, then gets pulled for Jake Bird, who comes in and hits Tyrone Taylor with a pitch. So the Mets have the bases loaded, nobody out, and here is that trio. Brett Baty strikes out looking. Granted, a couple of brutal calls in that at-bat, particularly the one that he got rung up on. That should have been a ball. I felt like Baty was in the middle of a pretty solid at-bat, and he got the bat taken out of his hands by the umpire. So that one, you can't really blame him. But Francisco Alvarez and Ronnie Mauricio, you certainly can. Both of them struck out swinging ugly at bats. Through the first 6 innings, the Mets were 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position, stranding 9 base runners. Meanwhile, Kodai Senga started the game great, retired the first 7 batters that he faced. But then he gave up a solo home run to Mickey Moniak, and then after that, there was a double hit. Then Senga issued a walk. So that was a really rough inning. Gets a big double play ball to get out of it. 4th inning, you start to see the defense really shining for the Mets. Francisco Alvarez erased a leadoff single with just a great caught stealing. He was up ready to throw. The pitch was in the dirt. He makes the pick backhanded, then has a hard throw to second base to gun down the runner. That was one of the really nice plays the Mets made. 5th inning, Kodai Senga gives up a leadoff triple, gets a strikeout. Then Pete Alonso with the infield drawn in makes one of the best plays I've ever seen him make. A ball that is hit to his right. He fields it backhanded. He's going with his momentum that way, throws across his body, and suddenly, when he throws from a really weird angle, it ends up being a perfect strike home, and the Mets are able to gun down a runner at the plate, and that helps Senga get through that 5th inning where he, again, was sitting there with a runner on third base. nobody out. Senga overall, it felt like he didn't have his best stuff. It felt like he was missing the zone a bunch, and yet you look up at the final picture, it's 6 innings, it's 1 run allowed on the solo homer, 5 hits, 2 walks, struck out 6. Again, didn't look great at times, but you look up and it's another quality start. He's got a 1.59 ERA in the season. So he did his job to keep the game close. Finally, in the 7th inning, the Mets take a lead. Starling Marte and Juan Soto each got hits. That set up Pete Alonso, who's been Captain Clutch this year. He hit an RBI double that scored 2, and the Mets were able to take a 2-1 lead. But that lead would not hold in the bottom half of the inning. Huascar Brazaban gave up a triple. Juan Soto made a good attempt trying to catch it against the wall. Then you saw Mickey Moniak hit a base hit, and Soto made a great play, cutting the ball off, spinorama throw to second base, guns down the runner, trying to stretch it into a double. So that was a big play that helped Brazaban get through that 7th inning. The game at that point was tied 2-2. Mets offense was completely stagnant. They had just given up a lead, and it was feeling like a game that the Mets were not going to win, just because you had so many chances with runners in scoring position where you just failed to get the job done. The Rockies were able to walk the tightrope so many times, and it just seemed like a game where we were all meant to be frustrated, where it felt like it was going to end with some type of a bitter, brutal, whether it was a defensive mistake or just another failed opportunity offensively, and the Rockies were going to end up winning it, maybe in extra innings. Like, it just, the vibes weren't right, especially when Ryan Stanek in the bottom of the 8th inning loads the bases with nobody out. But somehow, some way, the Mets win this game. I want to talk about the final inning and a half and what happened as this team had a little bit of magic for the night that helped them win a game that, honestly, for a large portion, they didn't deserve to win, but they were able to pull it out in the end, as all good teams are able to do. Win games you're not supposed to. That is how you get to the point where at the end of the season, you're looking up and there is 100 in that win column. Huge win for the Mets. I want to talk about the ending in just a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and to win big. And it's not just your NBA action. You can look at your MLB action. Maybe you think that Francisco Lindor is going to come off the 2 days of not playing with that toe and have some more magic in his bat on Saturday night. If he's in the lineup, maybe you want to look at his home run prop and combine that with the Mets to win. Or you could just look at Clay Holmes, and maybe it's how many outs he's going to get or how many strikeouts he's going to get. You can find all of that over at FanDuel.com. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. You head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you're an everyday listener to the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service. We get updates from me anytime news breaks from the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime. Take part in our Locked On Mets sign photo giveaways. Get a line graphic sent to your phone each day so you know who's in the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find a link in the episode description or go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Now, the 8th inning began as a disaster for Ryan Stanek. Gave up a base hit, then a double, which probably should have scored a run. A bad decision by the Rockies third base coach to hold the runner up and really take a triple away when it certainly should have been a triple with a run scored. Instead, the Mets catch a break. You got runners at second and third, nobody out. Stanek issues a walk to load the bases. So the Mets draw the infield in, bases loaded. Can they make a big play to get out of it? Can they get 2 outs? Can they cut down the lead runner at the plate? What's going to happen? Line drive is hit at Brett Baty, and Baty is able to feel the ball, the presence in mind, and one motion to be racing towards the bag, and he's able to beat the runner there, places a tag on him, or really kind of tackles him off of the base, and the Mets are able to get 2 outs on that line drive. Now, I had sent out a tweet after that catch, And I had said, if the Mets win this game, that play by Brett Baty will absolve him of the error that blew the final game against the Dodgers. Some of the comments I got were understandable. Say, oh, that doesn't forgive it. Okay, fine. If you want to stay in the lane of, Brett Baty's mistake should still be held over his head for multiple days, by all means. But there was even people saying it wasn't a heads-up play. He didn't go to the bag because all he needed to do was touch the bag to get the force out. Well, you know what? Here's what I'll tell you. Personally, watching that play, I don't know if he gets to the bag before the runner does because he was drawn in, and by the time he catched the ball and went, it was quicker to get to the runner than to get to the base. Not to mention, you could have said that the runner did beat him to the bag. Granted, he didn't go for the bag, but he was going for even short of the bag and might not have gotten there. And it was Baty's momentum that basically pushed the guy off the base that allowed the Mets to get the out. I just thought it was wild how unforgiving, and it makes sense, Mets fans can be. And I'm sure some of you are watching this saying, why am I giving Baty so much credit for that play? He should have just touched the base, or you still should be ripping him for what he did against the Dodgers. I thought it was a great heads-up play, and I feel like Brett Baty largely has been playing a very good defensive third base. So I'm not mad at his defense whatsoever. Yes, he had a blunder this week, but I thought he made up for it with that play. It was a huge one, and it helped Brian Stanek get out of that jam. He gets a big strikeout, goes roaring off the mound as he was able to somehow navigate that and put up a 0. Then the 9th inning, the Mets were able to get back up on the board and take a late lead. Juan Soto falls behind an account 0-2, works it even, then rips a line drive up the middle for a base hit. Soto, 3 hits in a game for the first time in a Mets uniform. That'll definitely happen plenty of times throughout this season and throughout the next 15 years. I'm sure he's going to have a lot of 3-hit games. So it was good to see him finally have one as a Met. Pete Alonso drew a walk to set up Jeff McNeil, hit a fly ball that allowed Soto to advance to third, but did not get the job done. So who comes in the game to get the Mets over the top? None other than the captain, Francisco Lindor, broken pinky toe and all, comes off the bench to pinch hit for Tyrone Taylor with an 0-1 count, gets a cutter, and it's just all over it. Rips it into the right field corner, scores Soto easily. Pete Alonso scores from first base on the double. Got to give Pete a ton of credit. Same game that he makes the athletic throw home, he does a incredible swim move that I didn't think he was even capable of, and somehow wraps his backhand around the plate and gets it in there to beat the tag. Awesome slide or awesome dive by Pete to give the Mets an extra insurance run. They didn't need it as Edwin Diaz was perfect in the 9th to pick up his 14th save. But really just a couple of awesome plays to look back on in this game. And the stars, as I talked about a couple shows ago, are starting to be the star players you need to drive a real, no doubt about it, World Series contender. And I still feel like that's where the Mets are trending. You're seeing now Juan Soto come to life a little bit. Pete Alonso had a rough May after a supernova April, and now he's back in that supernova status in June, now leading Major League Baseball in RBIs at 57. He is as hot as anyone. He's also hitting 358 this year with runners in scoring position. So you got to give him a lot of credit for what he's done to carry this offense that has been largely bad in those spots. Pete's been the one guy you could always count on. Lindor making great plays. Here he is coming off the bench, having another clutch moment. He's had most of the clutch hits this year. You have Kodai Senga. That's a star player keeping you in the game. And then you have Edwin Diaz locking the door shut. You're seeing that top-end talent on the Mets really shine through, and that is very exciting to see moving forward because this is a team right now that I feel like day by day is becoming more and more of a favorite in the National League East. You're still going to have the Dodgers who are going to be the perceived favorite until they're eliminated. There's no doubt about that. But when you're looking at these other teams, they're going to go into the playoffs looking to upset the apple cart. You have the Mets, you have the Cubs, you have the Phillies. I think the Mets right now are at the top of that list. And yes, this wasn't an incredible game. They certainly should have scored more runs. But these are the games that, again, you're looking like the games that look like you're going to blow it the entire time. A game that you look like you just can't get things together and it's going to be a frustrating loss. To pull it out late and to get the breaks that you need to, those are the magical moments in a really great season that make you think, okay, this team has something special. Feels like they're having a lot more fun lately, and that is breeding some better results. So great win by the Mets. Let's see if they can keep it up and win this series on Saturday against the Rockies. Maybe even go for a little bit more on Sunday. It was very close to being a series where the Mets were going to have to win these last two games. Otherwise, it would turn into a very disappointing week. Now, you look at where they're at through 5 games this week, 3-2, took 2 of 4 from the Dodgers. You could have had more, but again, going into the week, if you said they were going to take 2 in LA, you would have taken it. Now, let's see if they can keep handling business in Colorado. 1 more win, you have a winning week. 2 more wins, 5-2 week, and you're going home feeling pretty great with the Nationals coming into town on Tuesday. So we'll see where things go from here in this series. I'll be covering it more throughout the weekend, but I want to talk about Sean Manaea making his first rehab start. How did he look? We're going to go through that to close out the show in just a minute. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get closer to our next goal of 14,000 subscribers. Now, Sean Manaea made his first rehab start on Friday, pitching for the Brooklyn Cyclones. The line looks ugly. Inning in 2/3, 4 hits, 4 runs, 3 earned runs, no walks, 2 strikeouts. But if you actually look at what happened, not as bad as the line would suggest. He struck out the first batter that he faced, gave up 2 singles, then hit a batter to load the bases, got a sac fly, then got a ground ball that could have gotten him out of the inning. Marco Vargas makes a bad throw. They rule it a base hit with a throwing error that allows the runners to advance. 2 runs score, one of them earned, the other one unearned. Then he gave up another hit, so 4 runs come across in that inning. But 3 singles, had Marco Vargas made the play, maybe only 1 run comes across, and then you look at his second inning of work, gets a fly out, then Vargas makes another error before a ground out marks the end of Manaea's day. He gets pulled again with 1 2/3 innings pitched. But he got over 35 pitches, which was the goal, and it was supposed to be 2 up downs. He did that. So, inning in 2/3, 36 pitches, big check mark. Now you move on to the next start. And following what Frankie Montas has been doing in his rehab, you can see the pathway for Manaea. Montas went to 37 pitches in his first rehab start. Second rehab start, it was 3 innings, 49 pitches. The third rehab start was 4 innings, and he was up to 61 pitches. That was the most recent one. He'll probably make a start on Sunday. I imagine that start, the goal will be to get him to 5 innings. I think he actually did get 5 up downs in his last one, because I think he went out there for the 5th, gave up a home run, then got pulled. But I imagine you see Montas get up to 75 pitches. Then 1 more rehab start, he should be full go. They might want to give him a 3rd rehab start just to line up the next time they need a 6th starter in the rotation, and also just to get him right, get him confident. But Montas is getting close. And if you look at Manaea, he's going to need probably at least 4 more rehab starts to be fully stretched out if he follows the similar blueprint that we've seen from Montas. So you look at the minor league off days and the scheduling, he will only be able to start once next week, Manaea, because he'll be off Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, could pitch on Wednesday, but then he'd only have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. He'd be good to go on Monday, but in the minor leagues, they don't pitch or they don't play on Monday. So he's not going to be able to start again until Tuesday. And then that week, he should be able to make 2 starts. So if you're looking at his rehab, next week he should start once. The following week, he should start 2 times. That'll get him to 4 rehab starts, where his pitch count could theoretically be getting close. If he has to make 1 more after that, we're looking at the earliest possible return for Sean Manaea to be like June 27th. If he only makes 4 rehab starts, I'm assuming he's going to make 5. That would mean that his earliest possible return would be July 2nd. If he does make a start on July 2nd, that means that he could have 2 starts before the All-Star break, potentially 2 or 3 after the All-Star break. The Mets, if they're lucky, will be able to see 4, if not 5, MLB starts from Sean Manaea before the deadline. I think that's important because while I really don't believe this team needs to add a starter at the deadline, with the way there are 5 guys in the rotation this year have pitched and getting Montas and Manaea back, I still would understand wanting to have at least 3 guys you feel great about handing the ball to in a playoff game. Right now, I think they have 2, David Peterson and Kodai Senga. Sean Manaea should be the 3rd, but getting a look at him is going to be very important to see, is he the guy from last year, or are there some concerns that he's going to slide back a little bit in what has been so far a lost season? Obviously, there's still going to be plenty of season left when he does return, but that's just something to monitor. So we'll see how many rehab starts it takes for these 2 guys to get back, and then how many big league starts they get, so that the front office can assess what they truly need at the trade deadline. Last little thing to talk about in Syracuse. The Mets won 18-0. Drew Gilbert hit a grand slam, but more importantly, Brandon Sproat had a good start, maybe his best of the season. Went 6 scoreless on 83 pitches, allowed 5 hits, 2 walks, struck out 4. Max Kranick came on in relief, got 5 outs, struck out 3, allowed 1 hit. Kranick needs to spend 11 more days in Syracuse, unfortunately, before he can come back up to the big league club. But getting back to Sproat, he's now lowered his ERA by more than a run over his past 3 starts. He went from a 6.69 ERA through 9 starts to now a 5.33 ERA through 12 starts. He had 2 starts where he went 5 and allowed 2 earned runs, and now this one where he went 6 scoreless. It's the second time this year he has gone 6 scoreless in a start. So it's good to see Brandon Sproat pitching a little bit better. I don't think that really is going to factor into the Mets season at all. I think Sproat at this stage is just trying to end the year with some good moments and some good stretches in the AAA schedule so that he goes into next year and doesn't need too much more seasoning to potentially impact a big league rotation. Hopefully the stuff ticks up again. If you want more analysis on Sproat and the other 5 prospects that made our top 100 at Just Baseball, where I write, you can go back to yesterday's show and check that out. On tomorrow's show, I'll be breaking down the latest Mets versus Rockies game. We'll see if there's anything else in the news to discuss. Will Paul Blackburn maybe be seen coming out of the bullpen over the next couple days? That's certainly something to talk about. And at some point in the not too distant future, I do want to discuss a center fielder on the market potentially that could really make a difference for the Mets at the deadline. I think we'll probably do that with the off day on Monday for maybe Tuesday's show, but you want to stay tuned. You never know when we're going to discuss that trade or anything else exciting. So if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on the audio side, follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Follow me on social media, Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listener, your first watch every day. Now, for your second watch, check out Locked On MLB Game Night, which will take you around the action of Major League Baseball with insights from some of our local hosts. You can find Locked On MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel as well as the Locked On MLB podcast feed.